Greetings and welcome. Jonathan Foust here with yet another webcast. I hope you are doing well. Hope you're enjoying your summer. Let's see. We have an archive talk coming up. I like this one. This is a good one. This is from a number of years ago, and it's on the keys to lasting happiness. So if you're not interested in being happy, then just skip this. But if you are, stick around. We're going to start with a short meditation and then a quick intro to the talk. But before we do, big thank you to Glenn Harrison and Leo Gimo, our producers for this event. Thank you to the Insight Meditation Community of Washington for hosting this podcast. To my friends at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Arlington, there is a live Monday night class going on these days. This would not be complete without a thank you to Rita Moran, our mindful movement leader, and to Ray Manioki, who guides the mindful dialogue after this session. 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, you can join Rita for some mindful movement to help to work out the wiggles and get you ready for a little meditation in this talk. And afterward, if you'd like some time to connect with like-minded folks about the talk, about your practice, about what's happening from this lens of mindfulness, Ray Manioki is a wonderful guide. Those links to the Zoom sessions before and after are on my website and on my Facebook page. Let's see. Also, just to let you know that this is all offered freely, so no one is ever denied access to these practices and these teachings per the kind of orthodox guidance from the Buddha. Basically said, you can't put a price on these, so don't. But let's encourage generosity on all ends. So thank you for your support. I do appreciate that. Without further ado, let's move into our meditation. And a really nice way to begin. First of all, we'll do a little bit of stretching. But one of the really cool ways is to explore through the doorway of sound. There's some beautiful teachings in sound meditation. I'll offer a little bit of instruction, but I want to give you some time to practice as well. So you might reach the arms up overhead, open your jaw wide, let out any sounds. How does your body want to move to help to prepare you for this meditation? When you're ready, you can let your eyes close and again, make any little micro adjustments you might need to help you settle in. You might take just 3 slow breaths. Notice where you feel the breath on the inside and sense on the exhalation anything that could relax or soften or let go. Mindfulness of sound can be a really powerful practice. And you might now just open your attention to the sounds 360 degrees. I'm going to offer a few questions for you. Can you identify the sounds that are the furthest away on the very edge of your capacity to hear? Can you identify the sounds that are the closest? And is it possible to sense how you cannot hear better by trying harder, but actually how listening is actually through this sense of relaxation and receptivity? Can you imagine for the next few moments just receiving the sounds as they're happening? There are 3 qualities of listening. The first is to recognize that they're constantly changing. This is the factor of impermanence. The second factor, and you might notice this as you continue your practice after these initial instructions, to notice how when you fixate on one sound, you tend to not notice the other sounds. The third quality here is to notice how the sounds are not personal. They're not coming from within you, they're coming from the outside. And the next quality is it's very subtle, but it's a very interesting way to explore how you perceive sound. One form of listening is listening with the mind. And you'll notice how your mind will identify the location, give the sound a name, and then, like in lightning, it'll determine whether it's a threat or not. Location, sound, and determining if it's safe. And another quality of listening is sometimes described as bare attention, which is to actually just experience the sound without a label, just the vibration of sound. You might soften the muscles of the face, relax your palms and your belly. Relax the soles of the feet and the heels. And as you continue, if you are drawn to explore sound as your anchor, when the mind wanders, come back to the experience of here and now, the vibration of sound. And if you prefer, you might use breath as your anchor, or maybe the palms of the hands. Exploring through this doorway of deep relaxation and sharp attention to the present moment. At any point, you can begin again, relaxing, softening on the inside, the sense of receiving the moment, and then opening your attention to your anchor, perhaps to the sounds, noticing in exquisite detail the sounds the closest, the sounds the furthest away, 360 degrees, and sensing this seat of the witness, your capacity to observe exactly what is happening, and at the same time to let things be, to allow things to change, to open to this sense of flow. In these remaining minutes, you might explore if it's possible to soften and relax even more. Two fundamental questions. What exactly is happening right now? Can you let it be? In these remaining moments, you might ask if there's anything right now in your mind and the body that could relax or soften or let go. Notice this quality of presence, this quality of spacious, relaxed, allowing, and the natural flow of things. You might gently deepen your breath and just sense what may have shifted over the course of this meditation. Letting your body move a little bit to the right and to the left. Take some time to stretch. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And welcome back. Happiness is something we're all seeking. Generally, we start looking for happiness outside of us, which of course is the grand illusion. To find happiness on the inside, regardless of externals, becomes a very interesting exploration and practice and in life. The following talk, The Keys to Lasting Happiness, explores these facets of opening to your true nature. One of the highest qualities we can cultivate is true, deep, and abiding happiness. Enjoy the following talk, and many, many blessings.
So the other morning, Tara and I scheduled some time to have a check-in, kind of clear the air, see how things are. And this is only, I guess, maybe 2 days ago. It was kind of an informal check-in, and Tara said to me, "What do you think about how we're doing in our relationship?" And I just froze, So there's always that sense, I think, for many, many people, particularly men, when you're asked a question like that, it's like, okay, what did I miss? What didn't I see? What am I supposed, that sort of paralysis. I'm supposed to be feeling or aware of something I'm not aware of, So oftentimes when I'm in that paralysis, I'll turn to humor, So I grabbed my iPhone and I pressed the button for Siri. And I said, "What do you tell your wife when she asks you how you're doing in your relationship?" And the look on Tara's face was precious. She's got a great sense of humor. So she laughed. But then here's what Siri said. Siri said, "You are okay. I am okay. This is the best of all possible worlds." And I read that, and then we just sort of looked at each other like, that is so heavy. And here's the scary thing. I have not ever been able to duplicate it with Siri. It never. So something came through my phone, basically telling me that this is the best of all possible worlds. So that was a great kind of premise for looking at the subject of happiness. Tonight I'd like to talk a little bit about how we look for happiness in ways that don't work. How happiness is not just for advanced practitioners. The relationship between attention and happiness. And then a little bit on how do we let go of the deepest form of clenching that really holds us back from true nature. So I was thinking about this, and in meditation, I just got this technicolor memory. Do you remember when Eddie Murphy used to do the buckwheat character on SNL? And they had Buckwheat's greatest hits playing. And one of the songs he sang was "Wookin' Panub in all the wrong places." And the subtitle was "Wookin' Panub" underneath. So we're looking for love in all the wrong places. That's kind of the first thing I wanted to say. We're looking for happiness in all the wrong places. And this was part of what the Buddha saw in his awakening, was everyone was looking for happiness in exactly the wrong places. If you're looking for happiness in things that are bound to change, you're bound to be disappointed. When you focus on happiness through anything that is born out of causes and conditions, it's going to be like sand just slipping between your fingers. So the Buddha and Buddhism speaks of a deeper happiness, what is sort of transcendent to the pleasure that we get through the senses. So the word for happiness in Pali is sukha. It means ease, it means pleasure, it means bliss. It's often described in terms of meditative absorptions, sort of states of consciousness. And the word su means good, and ka means aperture. And the analogy is like dead center on a wheel. So happiness is like the axle hole of the wheel. And so if the axle hole's a little bit off, the entire wheel is off. So it's that place, dead center, where everything is in balance. That's sukha. There's no wobble. And the opposite of sukha is dukkha. And dukkha means stress, unsatisfactoriness, unhappiness, displeasure, suffering. So there's a lot of interest in happiness now. You may have seen it. There's tons of books on happiness, and it's kind of cool to see it being out there. And of course, there's been a very deep look at the psychology of happiness. You may be familiar with Martin Seligman, who has developed all this work on positive psychology. And here at George Mason is actually an institute exploring positive psychology. And he speaks, if you can think of PERMA, P-E-R-M-A, that these are the qualities of what cultivates happiness in your life. The first is pleasure, where you're taking pleasure in your life. You're taking pleasure in the senses. You have things in your life that please you. The second, the E, is engagement. You feel engaged in your life. You have a sense of flow. You're part of something. You're being challenged and yet you're enjoying it at the same time. The R is relationships, that you have social ties that are valuable, that are supportive, that are interesting, that are stimulating. The fourth, the M, is meaning. That you have a sense of purpose, a sense of you're part of something bigger than you that sort of drives your life. And the A is accomplishments. That is there's a happy feeling when you have a sense of have accomplished something. You've realized a goal. That's a very, very deep quality of happiness. So part of being happy is about being engaged in your life, being fully engaged, enjoying the senses, being engaged with other people in meaningful ways, having a sense of purpose, a sense of accomplishment. Of course, it becomes a dance between being engaged in your life and being over-engaged, being over-committed, which takes us right back to dukkha, where the center of the wheel is off and suddenly you're busier than you can be. Your commitments have exceeded your energy. You don't have a sense of purpose, whatever that may be that takes you that wobble out. So oftentimes in happiness, in Buddhist psychology, is thought of something that's a byproduct of meditation. And it is a byproduct of meditation practice, but it's also the byproduct of an engaged life. So you don't have to be living in a monastery to develop these qualities of happiness. In fact, the challenge is to bring it into our relationships and into the world. You may be familiar with the 5 regrets of the dying. This was first an article, and now it's a book written by someone who spent many, 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 many years sitting with people who are dying. So here are the top 5 of what people regret. Number 1, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. The second, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Third, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And 5, I wish that I had let myself be happier. Those five things are a wonderful mirror to really reflect in your life, to live a life of no regrets, to look back and to explore, is there anything that in your life where you're not being true to yourself? Are you working too hard and not savoring? Is your work-life balance out of balance? Is there anything in your life and your relationships where you haven't fully expressed what you're feeling? Have you fallen out of touch with friends? And what is your happiness set point? How happy are you allowing yourself to be? Which is a very interesting reflection on dying. I wish I had let myself be happier. So there's a little reflection that I really like, particularly when I have a decision to make sometimes. But I thought it might be a nice little 3-minute meditation to do, a little reflection on this. So you might close your eyes, and this is a meditation to sort of allow you to open to whatever memories or thoughts or images might come up for you. Some of us are visual, we can sort of picture things easily. Some are more auditory, we might remember names or sounds or words. Some of us are more kinesthetic, we feel things inside. So this little meditation I call the rocking chair test. You might imagine yourself at 102, sitting in your rocker. You might just take a moment to imagine being in this old body, coming toward the end of your life, your mind's still clear. When you look back on your life, what was most important to you? Is there anything that you regret, that you wish you had changed? And you might imagine if you have a decision to make now, you might just sort of go through the files quickly, just a decision that you've got coming up. And it might be helpful to sort of help you to clarify if you sort of like wrote down that on a piece of paper. Imagine you could see it, or imagine someone saying it out loud. Either with this decision or just your life in general, what would that 102-year-old you say to you? What kind of advice would they give you? And when you're ready, you can deepen your breath. And you can let your eyes open, or if you like, you can remain with them closed. That little rocking chair test I find to be a helpful little practice, particularly when I have a decision to make. There's sort of a remembrance that all this is passing away at some point, to clarify what's most important. Or as Carlos Castaneda likes to say, to keep death on your left shoulder as an advisor is a very wise thing to do. So the Buddha taught to the monastics, he also taught to lay people, the people who were living in the world, engaged with their lives. And I thought I'd just touch on a couple of the suttas of what the Buddha talked about. He talked about the 4 types of happiness if you're living in the world. The first is called the happiness of earning by just and righteous means. So a certain happiness that comes when you're doing work that is fulfilling and contributing in some way. That's a quality of happiness. The second is the happiness of using wealth liberally on family, friends, and good deeds. So a certain happiness that comes when you're helping others, when you're supporting others with the merit of your work. The fourth is the happiness of debtlessness, a certain happiness that comes when you're free of debt. You don't owe anyone anything. And the happiness of blamelessness, to live a faultless life without doing harm. And of those, he said that the happiness of blamelessness is by far the greatest happiness for those living in the world. Economic and material happiness is not worth 1/16th part, he said, of the spiritual happiness that comes out of living a good life. And of course, when we practice meditation, we start to become more aware in our lives. And oftentimes we can start to become aware of the old wounds, unforgiven places, the undigested sadness or grief or whatever is in there comes to the surface as we practice. Inevitably, it's designed to. And as one of my teachers said, most people stop a spiritual practice because it's working. One of the qualities the Buddha spoke of cultivating well-being and happiness is the practice of metta, of practicing kindness and compassion. And he talked about how that was perhaps one of the most effective tools. And it really is extraordinary. Recently, I was speaking with someone who was in a huge amount of conflict with their partner. And I suggested that he offer metta as a practice. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you feel safe from inner and outer harm. Even though he was feeling hurt and rejected and a huge amount of anger back and forth, he actually took that on as a practice. Just, 2 or 3 times a day, but where the attention goes, the energy flows. That's one of the aspects of consciousness. Whatever you focus on, energy is going to move in that direction. So somehow just offering the loving kindness prayer and really feeling it. May you be happy. May you know peace. May you be free from suffering. It sort of broke the whole paradigm of hurt and hatred and other. Not like everything became peaches and cream. There's still a huge amount of work to do. But it broke the frozen place he was in about creating just an unreal other out there. There's a great Chinese proverb that says, if you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. If you want happiness for a lifetime, help someone else. Acts of kindness are extraordinary in breaking down this barrier of a separate self. When we recognize that other people feel what we feel, when we develop our capacity to role reverse, to really empathically imagine what another person is experiencing, it's a direct path to happiness, according to these teachings. So it has something to do with the relationship between your outer world and your inner world. When something that is arising between you and feeling free or feeling happy, you can either change the externals or you can change the internals. Anything you can come up with as a complaint, there are really only 2 options. Change what's happening externally, or focus on how you're holding it internally. That certainly doesn't mean that you don't make external changes. But actually, when you focus on the internal experience, your effectiveness gets dramatically enhanced. When you can come from a place of wisdom, a place of compassion. So there's something in here that I wanted to touch on. As we've talked a little bit about happiness, living in the world, and happiness in relationship with each other, there are some very, very powerful teachings on the cultivation of happiness in the practice of meditation itself. Oftentimes we think of happiness as non-ordinary states, kind of an extraordinary state of consciousness. oftentimes it's associated with really deep states of concentration. I once was on a month-long retreat, and I think it was my second month-long retreat, and I sort of fell into a very concentrated place where it was easy for me to focus. Kind of the externals kind of fell after a little while of no eye contact, no speaking, just practice, practice, practice. I became very, very absorbed into my internal experience. And I noticed that when I would focus on my right hand, it would warm up. And if I would just hold my attention there, I could feel that hand getting really hot. And then I thought, well, this is kind of cool. And then I brought my attention to my left hand. And then my left hand got really warm. And then it became very hot. And so I just in a kind of a playful way, I just sort of moved the energy around my body, and I could move heat in different places around my body. And I remembered many, many years ago, Swami Rama, who was the founder of the Himalayan Institute, when he was one of the first Easterners to come to the West. And I think he was at the Mayo Clinic, and they could not explain why he could make one hand really warm and then the other one, kind of back and forth. And so I thought of that, and I thought, oh, I'm doing what Swami Rama did. And this is cool. And then I realized, well, wait a minute, this is cool, but it has nothing to do with enlightenment, you know. It was kind of becoming a really cool game, you know. I'm prone to that. I was once at another retreat, and where we were doing a scanning technique for 10 days. You're just slowly scanning through the body, 10 hours a day for 10 days. And this is kind of it was the first retreat I went on, actually, first Buddhist retreat. And so we had an interview with a teacher, and I was having these amazing experiences. I'm a pretty embodied person and all that, but feeling energy move. So I was with a teacher. It was this tiny little Indian woman, you know, just sort of like in her shawl, the head over there. And so you'd sort of walk up, and then she would ask you a question, give you some guidance, and then you'd go back. So we all would do that. So I approached her, and she said, "Do you have the technique?" And I said, "Yes, I think I have the technique." "Are you having success?" And I said, "It's just amazing. I'm feeling energy flowing through. I can actually feel sort of like piercing through my body and sort of like pushing tension out." And she goes, "Don't play games." Ooh. Totally busted. Totally busted. That altered my practice quite a bit. Interesting things happen when you can cultivate concentration, when you can really hold your attention on one place. There's a natural drawing inward of awareness, and in that become different levels of absorption. It can be quite powerful. Maybe we can take just a minute or two to explore this kind of attention. A way that I like to do this is if you can lift your hands so the palms are sort of facing up, and they're at about chest level. And you can close your eyes. And you might just take for 1 or 2 breaths, lengthen the inhalation, relax on the exhalation. And now completely and relax your hands. Relax the fingers, relax the thumbs. Can you relax each of the fingers? Can you imagine the space inside your right thumb? Can you imagine or feel the space inside your right index finger? Can you feel or imagine the space between your right thumb and your right forefinger? Can you feel or imagine the space between your fingers? Can you feel or imagine the space inside your palms, the space between your palms and the backs of your hands? Is it possible to feel or imagine the space inside your right thumb while simultaneously feeling or imagining the space inside your left thumb? Can you imagine the space or the volume of your left palm? The space between the palm and the back of the hand. And can you feel or imagine the space between the fingers of the left hand? And just sensing any awareness you have of any aliveness in the hands, the thumbs or fingers, any tingling or pulsing or pulse or warmth or vibration or subtle energy. And sense if you can just rest there. Track it. And very slowly now, let your hands begin to drift down toward your lap. And again, just sense if you can feel the hands as they move through space. And relax the palms, and we'll just take one more minute. And just feel as intimately as you can whatever you sense in the palms and fingers and thumbs, as if you're just receiving the sensations. And letting go of any technique, just take a moment to sense these two questions. What is your experience right now? And can you let this be? And you might notice if there's some quality of inner focus. If during that experience you may have, for some period of time, let go of any concerns of the world, and we're just intimately absorbed into the inner experience. And when you're ready, you can deepen the breath. And you can let your eyes open if you like, or again, you can remain with them closed. So you may have felt some kind of an internal shift in that practice. And that particular technique I find quite powerful in that you're using inquiry, you're using questions to sort of draw attention to certain focal points. There's something here about feeling or imagining space inside the body that can be very deeply absorbing. And that concentration cultivates a sense of steadiness and a sense of calming. And through that doorway, there can be an arising of what's called piti, of happiness, sometimes described as a rapture, a certain kind of joy that comes. And again, it comes through concentration and embodying into the senses. When you can sustain your attention for longer and longer periods of time in a sense-based focus like that. There are exquisite teachings that speak of the jhanas, which are the different stages of concentration that are enormously powerful. The arising of joy, the arising of happiness, the arising of very, very deep pleasure and equanimity. So while we can cultivate happiness externally, by looking at these qualities of positive psychology and the teachings around developing generosity, et cetera, happiness is also an inside job. It's something that you can cultivate actively through your practice. Part of that is about evaluating what's between you and feeling free, what's between you and living a life of no regrets, and bringing attention to that is all very helpful. But also this practice of inner absorption through meditation itself. And what we begin to see is how the self itself is oftentimes the cause of unhappiness. That our conditioned self, which has 3 factors that run through it. The factor of yearning, of craving, of wanting, of greed. The factor of aversion, of hatred, of ill will, of unforgiveness. And the factors of confusion or delusion, believing things are true that are not true. That the self is permeated with these 3 elements. Some people call them toxins, but they're just qualities of life, of greed, hatred, and delusion. The more you begin to see how those energies operate in your life, the more you can see where freedom is possible. My mother-in-law died, I guess about 2 months ago. And I bought her car. So I have a really cool 18-year-old Volkswagen Cabrio. It's the convertible. And she loved that car, and it's a cool little car. Again, it's like 18 years old and needed some work. But it's also, you can't miss it. It's this cinnamon color with a white roof and very beat up white leather interior. It's not exactly like a macho car, but it's really fun to drive. And so, and it was spectacular driving down today from Great Falls. It was just like the perfect temperature, and I was deep in a sense of happiness and appreciation. And I realized that part of being happy is sort of celebrating what's there. Here's this really cool car that I own, and that it's someday not going to be running. It won't be around. But to celebrate it now. And when I lived in the ashram and had a vow of brahmacharya, a vow of celibacy and poverty, we used to always say, no car problems. No relationship problems. And as my friend Anam Tubten, who was here last year, says in his book, no self, no problem. This sense of self that needs to control, this sense of self that is programmed through desires, the sense of self that's self-protective through fear and aversion, and the sense of self that is in some way confused, not completely in alignment with the laws of reality. We all are of that self, but we are all also the awareness of that self, which is really quite magical. Oftentimes, it may be, if not all the time, if you reflect back on your moments of deepest happiness, times when you were just supremely happy, and it might be in a relationship, it might be in intimacy with another person, it might be with an animal, it might be in nature, it might be absorbed in a job, it might be playing basketball, it might be engaged in a movie or a really, really good book. When you are deeply, deeply there, in that experience of happiness, you're not there. The self is not in active control. It's oftentimes described as a flow state. You're deeply absorbed in what's happening. Again, whether it be a really good book or a really good movie or any moment of intimacy, it's moment-to-moment awareness. You're not trying to control what's going to happen. You're not worried about what just happened. You're just in this very, very powerful unfolding moment. When we have those experiences, we often describe them as very happy experiences. So it's almost as if the self falls away. And yet there's something greater that fills our consciousness when that self falls away. It's a real mystery. The moments, the experiences you have of happiness are in part due to the skillfulness of your life, of how you've designed your life, your sense of connection, your sense of empowerment, your sense of pleasure, your sense of meaning. But they also have to do with how you direct your awareness. So you cannot make happiness happen, but you can cultivate the optimal conditions for it. To really evaluate your life, what would you have to change externally to be happier? Chances are there's some things that could use some tweaking. But also internally, is there some belief that you might investigate? Some way you're holding, some attitude you have toward your life that perhaps you could investigate and sense if that's really true, if it's helpful. The second thing is that you will not find happiness, long-lasting happiness, in sense pleasure, but it doesn't mean you should deny sense pleasures. In fact, when you realize that sense pleasures are temporary, it can dramatically up-level the pleasure and the happiness you'll have. To be deeply engaged in something that so pleases your senses, and to see it as something impermanent, is accessing a very, very powerful quality of consciousness that can lead to a deep sense of happiness, appreciation, of gratitude. And the factor here seems to be absorption, the capacity to pay attention. When you are fully present, no matter what you're doing, you will access that flow state. So the teaching here is whatever you're doing, to do it fully. In Zen, they talk of washing dishes meditation, where the washing the dishes is the practice. The warm water, the soap, the movement. And the wonderful side benefit of that is the dishes get done. So happiness is the result of applied skillful means, but it's also the byproduct of letting go. And the question always becomes, is the practice about doing, or is this practice about just being? And the answer is yes. Or as Frank Sinatra famously said, doobie, doobie, do. That's pretty much the essence of the practice. It's about skillful means, how you apply yourself, but also the capacity to pause, the capacity to open and deeply receive what's here. Why don't we close with a short meditation? You might lengthen your inhalation a little bit, draw your attention inward. And in these remaining minutes, You might sense how much you could soften, relax, or let go. I'd like to close with a poem from E. Cummings. Let it go. The smashed broken word, broken open vow, or the oath cracked lengthwise. Let it go. It was sworn to go. Let them go. The truthful liars and the false fair friends and the boths and the neithers. You must let them go. They were born to go. Let all go. The big, small, middling, tall, bigger, really, the biggest in all things. Let all go, dear. So comes love. Deepening the breath. You might reflect on these qualities of the Metta Sutta. You might either repeat the following words inwardly and silently, or just reflect on the words or find some words that work for you. May I feel happy. May I feel peace. May I feel safe from inner and outer harm. May I feel free from suffering. And you might bring into mind one person. It might be someone your attention goes to that's easy. It might be someone you're having a challenge with. And as you reflect on the following words, either repeating them inwardly or finding your own words, you might just sense the resonance internally as you offer them the following. May you feel happy as I wish to feel happy. May you feel peace as I wish to feel peace. May you feel safe from inner and outer harm as I wish to feel safe. May you feel free from suffering as I wish to feel free. And as you're ready, gently deepening your breath. And when you're ready, you can let your eyes open. May we all be happy. Thank you for your time and attention. Ran across this one line, definition of an optimist. Maybe you've heard this, since we're talking about happiness. An optimist is someone who figures out that taking a step backward and taking a step forward is not a disaster. It's cha-cha.